When our 3 children were infants, my husband used to sort of place them on the changing table and rotate their legs, saying, I've got places to go, I've got things to do, I've got people to see. They would beam up and smile, and as soon as they were old enough, they would giggle and giggle. But of course, they didn't have places to go, they didn't have things to do, and they didn't have people to see. All they had to do was be. At that stage of life, they were as much as possible manifestations of pure and holy being. But my husband and I, we had places to go and things to do and people to see, especially living in New York City. There was no dearth of places to go and things to do and people to see. We knew very well how to live like that. What we needed was to learn how to stop for ourselves, to stop for each other, to stop for our children, to stop so that the divine presence could rest between us, to stop, to just stop. But I didn't learn it then, and I can't speak for my husband because he's not here, but I don't think he learned it then. Certainly not when I was working and I had 3 kids under 3. And now that they are adults, I think maybe just possibly be learning it, or at least I'm practicing. It turns out that stopping is a hard thing to do, and it takes a lot of courage. Our portion this week, the portion we will read from tomorrow morning, talks about the importance of stopping. It talks about the land and letting the land stop. It's the law of Shemitah, which means to release, but it also says that the land should stop, that there should be a Shabbaton for the land. Stop and stop. Every 7 years, we stop planting, we stop harvesting, we observe Shemitah, at least again in the land of Israel. We stop. And in fact, this very year is a year of Shemitah, observed with a lot of loopholes in the land of Israel. Here is what the Torah tells us to do. Leviticus 25. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem ki tavo el haaretz asher ani noten lachem v'shavta haaretz Shabbat la'Adonai. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I'm giving you, the land is to cease. A Sabbath ceasing to Adonai. The 7th year is a Shabbat for the land itself. The Torah hears the needs of the earth to rest. The Torah goes on. For 6 years, you are to sow your field. For 6 years, you are to prune your vineyard. You are to gather in its produce. 6 shanim tizra sadecha, v'shesh shanim tizmor karmacha, v'asafta et tfuata. So for 6 years, you have to go, go, go. And then, v'shana shvi'it Shabbat Shabbaton yiyeh la'aretz Shabbat l'Adonai. In the 7th year, there shall be a stopping of Sabbath, ceasing for the land, a Sabbath to Adonai. Sadcha lo tizra, v'charmacha lo tizmor. Your field you are not to sow, your vineyard you are not to prune. So it's interesting, this principle of stopping doesn't start here in Leviticus. It stops in Breshit. It starts in Breshit, in Genesis. And in fact, we could say, in the beginning, God stopped. Consider this. God blessed the 7th day and sanctified, for on it God ceased, stopped from all God's work that by creating God had made. So this principle of stopping is encoded in the Torah from the very beginning. Shemitah is just a further manifestation of it. And as the Torah goes on in Genesis, the Torah describes only God stopping, but as the Torah goes on, people stop, animals stop, the strangers stop. It becomes clear. Shabbat becomes an institution for people, not only for men, but for women, not only for adults, but for children, not only for Israelites, but for the stranger amongst them, and not only for humans, but for animals. And not only now we see in Leviticus for creatures, for creatures, but for the land itself, right? This principle of stopping and resting is extended to the earth. Every seventh day we rest, every seventh year the land rests. I call it rest and revolution. This extraordinary principle of resting and stopping applied to the earth itself. As if the Torah could hear the cry of the earth, the need of the earth to rest and to heal. Imagine if we observed that globally all these years, and every 7 years gave the whole world, right, the whole earth, the whole planet, a chance to rest, a chance to heal. Maybe we wouldn't be in this mess that we're in now. And note that in Genesis, this is very instructive, there is no kedusha or bracha, no sanctity or blessing until God stops, until God finishes God's work and stops. So there's something about stopping that allows the divine presence to really manifest amongst us and intensify. So as we see, stopping is a crucial principle in the Torah. But then I discovered it's not only the Torah, it's not only Judaism. This is a principle we can find in other religions. So the other day I was listening to Thich Nhat Hanh, and some of you know that Thich Nhat Hanh is a teacher of mine from afar. And in this video, he talks about, well, he begins with these words: I have arrived, I am home in the here and the now. I am solid, I am free, in the ultimate I dwell. But then he goes further. He goes on to describe stopping. He says, some of us continue to run even in our sleep, in our dreams, because running has become a habit. We run in our sleep, in our dreams. I have arrived, I am home. I don't want to run anymore. You want to really rest. And then he says in this really sweet voice, his voice is amazing to listen to. You like to listen to the music of your breathing in and out. Your heart is playing music. Like that, you can enter your sleep peacefully and with much pleasure. Now listen to this part. He says, the practice of stopping is very crucial in the Buddhist tradition. There are moments when we don't do anything. We just sit there and lie down. But our bodies have not stopped. There's a tension in our bodies. The body does not have the capacity to rest, to stop. Stopping does not just mean stopping the mind. It means stopping the body, because the body has this habit of running. There's a feeling of restlessness in the body. You can help the body to stop. You can help to stop the mind. And then he says, and this blew me away, the Buddhist term for stopping is shamatha. Now, I'm probably pronouncing it not correctly. I don't know what it is. I don't even know what language it's in. But he said shamatha, and he said stopping. I'm like, oh my God, this is Shemitah. What is going on here? So I asked all my best friends who are scholars, and no one had really heard of this connection between Shemitah and shamatha. So I don't know if it's a real thing. What I learned is the semantic fields are different. What that means, I don't know, but they're different. So just to go on a little bit with Thich Nhat Hanh, you can stop at the time you walk. Wow, can you imagine that? What does that mean? You can even stop while you run, jogging meditation. because you are not running after something. You are not searching for something at all. You're at peace in the present moment. That is the meaning of shamatha. You need a strong will and a big desire in order to stop, Thich Nhat Hanh says, because the habit of running is very strong in us, in our mind and in our body. I think what is implicit here is that it takes courage to stop. We're so used to running, and we so admire each other for running. It's like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm just so busy, right? Everybody wants me to do something. I'm so busy. And thereby, I legitimate myself, right? I always feel needed. I always feel connected. But what happens if we just stop? I want to talk a little bit about the application of stopping. First, specifically, the connection between stopping and justice. Last Saturday afternoon, a white gunman in body armor killed 10 Black shoppers and workers at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. Another Black person and 2 white people were wounded. Federal officials are investigating the shooting as a hate crime. A state-level murder case is also underway. America can't seem to stop using guns. When can we stop? Just stop. As a sign of awareness that we've done great harm by allowing our citizenry to walk around with semi-automatic rifles and shotguns, can we just stop? I think what happens is that every time one of these things happen, we're in shock, we reel, we rock, we stop, and then we forget. We stop stopping. Now, I know I'm preaching literally to the choir. I'm guessing most of you in this room would agree that these massacres have to stop. I mean, who wouldn't? And maybe even that we have to regulate the use of guns, that we have to stop using them to kill innocent people going about their lives, that we have to stop allowing our school children to be killed in one of these massacres, that America has to stop killing people of color. Let's stop right here, right now. Let's say the names of the deceased. Let's show that we care. Roberta A. Drury, 32 years old. Margus D. Morrison, 52 years old. Andre McNeil, 53 years old. Aaron Salter, 55. Geraldine Talley, 62. Celestine Cheney, 65. Hayward Patterson, 67. Catherine Massey, 72. Pearl Young, 77. Ruth Whitfield, 86. Let's think about where else we need to stop. Let's stop desecrating the earth. Let's stop exploiting her. Like the Torah, let us recognize that the earth is desperate for rest. She needs a rest, so let's stop. And while these are really big asks, and many of us are just trying to do our best to get by in life, after all, we've got things to do and places to go. We've got people to see. But maybe we can begin by each of us identifying places we can stop. Stop something we're uncomfortable with. Stop mistreating someone or stop them from mistreating us. Just a little story about that. I remember a couple of decades ago, I was talking to a friend and I was about to say something a little bit mean about someone else. And I'll never forget his words. He said, "Stop right there." He didn't want to hear my gossip. He didn't want to hear my lashon hara, right? What's called the evil tongue in Judaism. And of course I was embarrassed. And of course I felt terrible. But I remember that lesson 2 decades later in some random conversation I had with my friend. He taught me something, that you could stop in the middle of a conversation, even though everything we do is sort of designed to keep going and not really question. And it's so hard to just say, stop, I'm uncomfortable with that. So stop. Maybe just stop talking and begin to listen. Or maybe if you're a listener and you never talk, stop listening, begin to talk. times just stop whatever you're doing to see what else is there, to allow the presence of God to live amongst us. I know we all have places to go, things to do, and people to see. But if we want to live a life with justice, a life with a divine presence in our midst, a life of wholeness, and it's time to learn how to stop, to practice stopping, to just stop.